Hello everyone. The name of the subject is Ground Improvement Technologies and the name of the topic is Expansive Soil. This is a part of Unit 1 and Lecture 4. These are some of the reference books. Okay. The objective is to test and identify any problems designed to minimize moisture content changes and to insulate from soil volume change, build in a way that will not change the moisture condition of the soil, maintain a constant moisture environment after construction. So let us understand. This topic is expansive soil. Okay. Expansive soils are soils that expand or swell when water is added and shrink when they dry out. Expansive soils have considerable strength in dry state, but the strength goes on reducing on absorption of water. The soil exerts considerable pressure on the foundation and during swelling. Expansive soil is mostly found like 30 to 40% in India. It covers most of the lands, around 30 to 40, and they have certain properties which are considered problematic for construction. And expansive soils have a tendency to swell up and increase in volume when the presence of moisture is there, and it shrinks to a very small volume, to its original volume, when it is in a dry state where the availability of moisture is less. Okay, so the expansive soil has considerable strength in dry state, but the strength goes on reducing on absorption of water. The strength in terms of compressive strength decreases with absorption of water. This land, this expansive soil or black cotton soil, does have a property that it will retain a lot of water and a lot of minerals, so it can be used for other purposes such as agriculture. But for the purpose of construction, this soil is considered a waste soil. So usually, this soil is removed from the site of construction and replaced by other soil which has much better soil bearing capacity and non-compressive or expansive properties. Expansive soils contain minerals such as montmorillonite, illite, kaolinite, clay. They are capable of absorbing water. In India, these expansive soils are known by local names such as black cotton soil or PC in central India, bentonite in Rajasthan and Kashmir, Mar or Kabar in Uttar Pradesh. These soils occupy almost 30 to 40% of the land area in India. So this is the plan. You can see all the soil distribution which we have already discussed in the previous video. Moving forward, causes of expansion of expansive soil. So if there is any source of moisture where the water can leak out or can be penetrated into soil by any means, can cause the soil to expand. So what are the major causes? First of all, most importantly, rain. Lawn and garden watering creates a moist zone on the exterior of the foundation. Chest pool, septic tanks, leaky pipes, and swimming pools. So these causes have to be undertaken while working with expansive soil. If an area which has maximum rainfall, the rainfall condition, the moist condition will be extremely high, and if there is expansive soil in that area which can affect the foundation of the building is considered threatful. There are some ways to maintain the moisture. We'll discuss about that. Okay, let us understand shrink swell behavior. Excluding deep underground excavations, that is tunnel, shrinkage and swelling effects are restricted to the near surface zone. Significant activity usually occur to about 3-meter depth, but this can vary depending on climatic conditions. Shrink swell potential of expansive soil is determined by its initial water content, void ratio, internal structure, vertical stresses, as well as the type of amount of clay minerals in the soil. It is mentioned in this Bell and Colshaw 2001. So in this, the we understand all the conditions which are undertaken while studying the behavior of shrink and swell property of black cotton soil. So in this, the area, if you are excavating for a large structure like tunnel where the maximum work is underground, so what happens is we have to make sure that these restrictions have to be kept in mind and all the necessary precautions should be taken. So for this, we have to understand that this property, like the water percolation due to rainfall or any tropical monsoon season, can usually go up to 3 meters in depth under the ground. Okay, and depending upon the different climatic conditions, it may vary because some areas they have heavy rainfall, and some areas such as Rajasthan has very less rainfall. So the conditions for other part of area with heavy monsoon and the conditions of area where monsoon is very less can differ. So usually 3-meter depth is considered where the significant change of volume takes place. Okay, and to understand the shrink and swell and the amount of swelling and shrinking of the soil, there are few uh, values which has to be already determined, that is initial water content, void ratio, internal structure and vertical stresses. The soil in an area can be like a sample can be carried out, and the initial water content can be done using dry density method, and that gives you the initial water content and void ratio. Internal stresses and vertical stresses can be calculated in labs using Proctor test, as well as the type of amount of clay material in the soil can should also be identified, which is also done in a lab. These minerals determine the natural expansiveness of soil and include smectite, montomorillite, morganite, nontronite, and vermiculite, elite, and chlorite. Generally, larger the amount of these minerals present in the soil, the greater the expansive potential. However, these expansive effect may become dilute by presence of other non-swelling minerals such as quartz and carbonate. So, if by understanding the constituents of the soil which is available in a particular site, we have to make sure that the minerals like smectite, montamorinite, contronite, vermiculite, elite, and chloride. These chemicals, if the amount of these chemicals are extremely high, so what happens is the soil shows the property of excessive expansion, and it can be resolved if the presence of what like minerals such as quartz and carbonate is extremely high. So this is an important point that should be kept in mind. The key aspect of expansive soil behavior, however, are a soil vulnerability of water included induced volume change. When soil with a high expansive potential are present, they will usually not cause a problem as long as their water content remains relatively constant. Okay. So if we have high expansive potential, we should make sure that the water availability of water should not change. The amount of water available in a certain environment should be maintained so that there is no problem. If the constant volume can be maintained by inducing water and maintaining the amount of moisture content throughout the year, this problem can be neglected or can be resolved. Okay. Soil properties, that is mineralogy, has to be properly studied. Suction and water condition has to be properly calculated because these things are the major factors which will affect or exert pressure on the foundation. So the more absorption, the more change in volume will cause more stresses and can affect the foundation of the structure. Water content variations both temporarily and partially. So the water content, the water content has to be like it can be. You have to analyze that the water content is um, temporarily available, or if that area has if that area has heavy rainfall, or if it is a seasonal rainfall where only a limit for a limited time of the year where the water content is extremely high for the area and can cause major disturbances, or if it is partially, like if the rainfall is less and it can be partially, like within few minutes the water gets seeped down and does not get much absorbed by the soil and does not affect much to the structure. Geometry and stiffness of the structure on particular its foundation. So, in a partially saturated soil, changes in water content and suction increases strength of the soil due to negative pore water pressure, increase the chances of damage occurring significantly, and the changes in soil suction occur due to water movement through the soil due to evaporation, transpiration, or recharge, which are often significantly influenced by interactions with tree through response to dried or wet periods of the weather. In a fully saturated soil, the shrink swell behavior is controlled by clay mineralogy. So, we have to understand that for a partially saturated soil, the change in water can affect, uh, put pressure on the soil as the changes are temporary and it can keep on changing. It can easily shift from swelling to a shrinking phase, which occurs due to water movement. And if in an area with fully saturated sink swell property behavior can be controlled by clay mineralogy, and clay mineralogy is like mixing of quartz and carbonate. So mineralogical aspect of expansive soil. Clay particles are very small and their shape is determined by the arrangement of thin crystal lattice layer that they form, which may which many other elements which can become incorporated into the clay mineral structure. Hydrogen, sodium, calcium, magnesium, sulfur. The presence and abundance of these dissolved ions can have a large impact on the behavior of the clay minerals. In an expansive clay, the molecular structure and arrangement of these clay crystal sheet has a particular affinity to attract and hold water molecules between the crystalline layers in strongly bonded sandwich. So, because these soils are cohesive, and the property of and the structure of the soil is such that it can hold the water into its molecular structure and hold it bonded for a very long time is the mineralogical aspect of expansive soil. And because of the presence and abundance of dissolved ions, it has a large impact on the behavior of the clay minerals. So, because of the electrical dipole structure of water molecules, they have an electrochemical attraction to the microscopic clay sheet. So, this is the reason why the water molecules is directly attached into incorporated into the chemical structure of the soil. The mechanism by which these molecules become attached to each other is called adsorption. So adsorption and absorption. In adsorption, the water molecule sticks to the surface of the soil particle. In absorption, where it gets percolated into the soil structure. The mechanism by which these molecules becomes attached to each other is called adsorption. So it sticks to the surface of the soil. The clay material, montmorillonite, part of the smectite family, can absorb very large amount of water molecules between its clay sheet and therefore has a large shrink swell potential. Okay, so this is one of the mineral that has the highest capability of absorption of water molecules. Okay, when potentially expansive soil becomes saturated, more water molecules are absorbed between the clay sheets, causing bulk volume of the soil to increase or swell. So these water molecules, when absorbed, the clay sheet attaches itself or it gets absorbed to the clay sheet, and this is the reason why there is a cause of increase in volume, and it results into the property of swelling. The same process weakens the interclay bond and causes reduction of strength of the soil. So as we discussed previously, we know that the soil, when it is in its dry state, it has more strength, and when it is saturated, it loses its strength. So it is due to reduction or the weakening of interclay bonds. Okay. When the water is removed either by evaporation or gravitational forces, the water between the clay sheet is released. Then the overall volume of the soil is reduced or it undergoes shrinking. As this occurs, features such as voids and desiccation, cracks can develop. So initially the volume of the soil was excessive, and due to which uh, the in the presence of the volume of the soil was excessive, and when this moisture is either removed using evaporation or we know that for gravitational forces, in sense of like if the water percolates further into the soil, then what happens, these extra water gets eventually released by this clay sheets, and the volume of the soil decreases as there is decrease in the level of water, due to which the original size changes from the larger size to a smaller size, which can result into large voids and desiccation cracks. Potentially expansive soils are initially identified by undertaking particle size analysis to determine percentage of fine particles in a sample. Clay-sized particles are considered to be less than U nanometer, although this value varies slightly throughout the world. But the difference between clay and silt is more to do with original particle shape. For example, Silt particles generally comprise quartz particles and are products of mechanical erosion, whereas clay particles are a product of chemical weathering and are characterized by their sheet structure and composition. So, due to chemical weathering process, these soil particles are reduced to very small sizes, due to which it has properties such as it has very less percolation, it retains water. The water, when present in an excessive volume, can cause the land to go marshy. Okay, and whereas the silt particles are a larger size soil particles, and these are produced due to the mechanical erosion or mechanical weathering, which results into soil particles but of larger size. To change the effective strength and role of suction. Changes to effective stress and role of suctions. Following any reduction in total stress, deformation will take place in the ground. This distinction can be made between an immediate but time dependent elastic rebound, swelling due to effective stress changes. So these are the two distinctive methods, distinctive distinctions that can be made between clay and silt soils. In soils, as in rock, rebound can be important deformation process, which encourages stress relief fractures and zones of secondary permeability, which can localize delay swelling. The amount of deformation depends on the underdrained stiffness of the soil, which is equivalent to the modulus of elasticity for soil as reflected by Young's modulus and Poisson's ratio. So we know that according to Young's modulus and Poisson's ratio, the Young's modulus was is to determine the stress and strain of a particle. So for understanding this, we have to make sure that uh, the permeability, the relief fracture, and the zones of secondary permeability, these things have to be localized, and so that the swelling can be delayed. Okay, and the amount of deformation usually depends on undrained stiffness of the soil. Like for soil particles with higher sizes or large sizes have well drained stiffness, but for clay soils we have very undrained and stiff form of stiffness for soil, which is which is actually evaluated as modulus of elasticity and also known as Young's modulus. Subsequent swelling requires an effective stress decreases as a movement of fluid into a geological formation of soil. Okay. So the magnitude of stress associated with these processes depends on the drained stiffness and the extent of the stress change. The water pressures which are set up to the soil or rock and with new boundary conditions, the rate of volume change depends on the compressibility, expansibility, and hydraulic conductivity of the sediments surrounding the material. In stiff homogeneous material with a low hydraulic conductivity, several decades may be necessary to complete the process. Shrinkage by swelling is similarly accompanied by reduction in water pressure and development of negative capillary pressure, which means if it is due to evaporation, the movement of water is upside and the capillary action is towards downside. So what happens is the reduction takes place in the direction opposite to the capillary pressure, and with along with the reduction of water pressure, there is uh, there are chances of like shrinkage, and shrinkage is excessive with reduction of water pressure. Deformation follows the same principles of effective stress. However, it has been shown by laboratory studies that degree of saturation of unconfined dry clay sample is with that a given water content was less than for a similar sample consolidated in an triaxial test to the same water content. That is, there was some air entry which affected both modulus and the strength of the soil. It's very simple to understand. This process thus leads to a void ratio which is higher than a clay consolidated to the same water content by simply increasing the confining load. So, because of the evaporation, this whole process leads to a increase of void ratio, which gets, which is extremely high for clay, and the consolidation, which is a compaction due to constant loading for a very long time, can cause the water content by simply confining the load. And we know that by confining the load, the compaction will take place for a very long duration, which is called as consolidation. Such a soil thus becomes inherently unstable, and if re-wetted will collapse, because it becomes unstable, as in the structure becomes the chemical structure becomes such that it gets expanded and then takes up a like 3D position where the moisture is withdrawn, and then if the watering takes place, the structure of the soil is bound to collapse. Subsequent laboratory tests on the partially saturated soil have shown that depending on the in situ stress conditions and the fabric, some samples may also first swell then collapse. Okay, let us understand some of the problems. When expansive soils are present, they will generally not cause any problem if their water content remains constant. So this is our uh, major part where we should find out ways to maintain the water content in the soil. And the situation where greatest damage occur is when there is significant and repeated moisture content changes, because as we know, initially when the water comes in and the water is absorbed, causing expansion, and after evaporation the soil maintain its structure, and if rewatering takes place it is bound to collapse, so due to which large volume change can be seen. And if this process keeps on going for in a cycle, it can actually majorly affect the structure of the building. It can directly exert pressure on the foundation of the building. Expansive soils usually won't have problem with heavy structures, but with light structures and pavements, they are excessively powerful enough to push the uh, light structures. So, if you're constructing any heavy, large buildings, they can hold the soil under its load for a considerable larger amount of time. But with light structures with very less load application on the soil, the soil pressure or the water pressure from the soil is so excessive that it can overturn these light structures or cause inundations. Deep excavation for foundation. For black cotton soil are residual soils resulting in weathering of igneous rock, which is basically basalt. The thickness of soil stratum can be high as 10 to 3 to 10 meters. Okay. Laying the foundation on a firm non-swelling stratum involves deep excavation in stiff clay and increasing the cost of construction. So this is basically a most important step wherein you can provide uh, like support to the foundation by reaching its foot to the non swelling or to a rock bottom, which can hold the weight of the structure even when there is change in volume, which will help us to prevent the overturning or uneven settling, which is usually common for such type of soil. Assumptions for low bearing capacity. Assumptions for low bearing capacity. Black cotton soil is complicated by various factors, which is swelling pressure, groundwater table variations, and site conditions. This leads to assumption of low bearing capacity, and this is also true because the soil, when it absorbs water, it loses its intercellular strength, and it should be considered as a low bearing capacity soil, and necessary modifications have to be done. But if the probable swelling is higher than the assumed soil bearing capacity, the foundation is subjected to differential settlements. So, if there are certain regions where the swelling, like the calculated proportion of changes in the swelling, is higher than the desired level of bearing capacity required by the foundation, then there are chances for uneven settlements to take place. Cracking of single-storied building is very common than double-storied building. This is nothing but an example that a heavy structure or a very large structure can hold its position, like by exerting a greater amount of load on the soil and maintaining its stability. Whereas for small structures or lighter structures, there it is extremely common to find such changes or like cracks due to uneven settling. Non-uniform swelling or shrinkage. The equilibrium water content is not same below the foundation, and this leads to differential settlement and diagonal cracking of the masonry structure. And we know that masonry structure has less strength when compared to a whole structure, reinforced concrete structure. So the maximum amount of the weakest point is usually considered as the masonry superstructure. And high cost and low reliability of rehabilitation. Even though we can take some precautions and remedial measures to counteract the uneven settling, but it is not a reliable source as it changes with every single cycle. For every year, we have 4 seasons, and during moisture and dry seasons, these rotations will keep happening, which will be a ongoing problem which cannot be resolved once. Either you need to replace the soil or put some other chemical admixtures to prevent the soil from swelling. Otherwise, if you're constructing such a area with black cotton soil, this process is intended to happen year and year again with change in the amount of moisture available in that area. So this is the lift of floor slabs. You can see the forces. If there is a rectangular floor, like slabs, a rectangular uniform loaded rectangular slab, so the load is usually equal on all parts of the uh, soil, which is exerted by rectangular slab. But if the swelling pressure is totally uneven and which can cause a differential movement in the slab, so the swelling movement with respect to vertical load is represented using a graph where the corner of the graph, edge of the graph, slab, and the center of the slab has been mentioned, and it has been represented using a graph. So usually you can see that with rain for it. So the piers are supported by the friction. You can see like the foundation of the building is embedded in the soil, and it is supported by the friction force. But whereas the outside area, which is directly exposed to the rainfall, here, the cracking, like the absorption of water, the water percolates into these cracks and large amount of soil gets expanded. So it takes place, and due to which there is increase in the volume, which exerts pressure onto the soil. So when the soil is wet, it expands and creates a lot of compressive stresses in the foundation of the building. Whereas During winters, the same soil undergoes a lot of cracking, and it is extremely weak in compressive strength, and does not exert any force on the for like foundation of the building, which actually causes voids, creation of voids and cracks, due to which the building tends to alter its weight and undergo uneven settling. So these are some of the cracks which are caused due to uplift pressure. There are several sort of diagonal deep cracks, which is extremely common to happen. Okay, the solution. Let us talk about some of the solution. The solution can be replacing the expansion soil under the foundation, changing the nature of expansive soil, changing by adding some modification solvent into the soil, and enhancing the property of the soil, strengthening the structure with to withstand height, and construction structures that are flexible enough to withstand the differential soil heave without failure, and construction isolated deep foundation below the depth of the active zone. So, what is the active zone? It is considered below 3 meters is considered as the within 3 meter it is considered as active zone, wherein a large amount of expansion is expected to occur, but below 3 meters is a non-active zone where much changes in the volume does not take place. So the foundation can be deep rooted, so that either it rests on a non-swelling agent or a rock strata, or to an extent that it reaches non-active zone, will actually help the building to prevent overturning. Replacing the expansive soil, the first and very simple method is to remove the entire layer of the expansive soil, to and to form and mix it, like it, to replace it with a firm and a non-expansive stratum. So we can use any other soil which does not show any property of expansion, can be used as a replacement. So, changing the nature of expansive soil. First of all, what can be done is compaction. Compaction will greatly reduce the amount of voids which is present into the soil particles. Pre-wetting, as we know that the soil can, when the soil is exposed with water, it swells and it fills up all the voids. So pre-wetting can be used so that the water can be captured below the surface of the building. Installation of moisture barriers is another way wherein a similar amount of water content can be maintained by isolating or insulating that area with moisture barriers. Otherwise, stabilizing the soil. In the stabilizing the soil, it can be done either by replacing the soil, or can be mixed with cement or lime, so that the natural cement and soil lime can adhere to clay particles, and with the presence of moisture it reacts and causes a bonding, and causes and creates a stable floor for the building construction. For compaction, the hive can be minimized by compacting to a low unit weight of high side to the optimum moisture content, above the 3 to 4% above the optimum. Okay, so what we do is, here we can see a machine which is usually used not for road construction but for compacting black cotton soil, wherein the voids in between the soil is greatly reduced, and the during this process, the moisture content is maintained above 3 to 4% of the optimum level. Then re-wetting, the wetting the soil before construction, so that most of the hive formed before the construction. This technique may be time consuming because seepage of water through highly plastic clay is slow. Okay, so after ponding, 4 to 5% of the hydrated lime may be added to the topsoil of top layer of the soil to make it less plastic and more workable. So what happens is, we know that lime has a property of bonding when in presence of water. So this is a process of stabilizing. Insulation of moisture barriers. The long-term effect of the differential hive can be reduced by controlling the moisture variation in the soil. This is achieved by providing vertical moisture barrier around the perimeter of the building. These moisture barriers may be constructed in trenches filled with gravel, lean concrete, or impervious material. You can use any of these materials to achieve moisture barriers. Usually, we use tarpatine uh, for like wooden structures. We can also use gravel, which forms a barrier, and then a lean concrete, as we know that it is totally impervious. It can also be used. So this is one solution where a chemical is used as moisture barrier. It is totally impervious and prevents the moisture to travel through it. The chemical stabilization of soil includes, uh, it is done either by addition of lime or by the addition of cement. The lime or cement and water are mixed to the top layer and the soil is compacted. So what happens in the presence of water, the cement and lime particles reacts with the soil particles and forms a bonding which hardens the soil and provides proper soil bearing capacity, the soil to retain the load of the building. The addition of lime or cement will decrease the liquid limit, the plasticity index, and the swell characteristics of the soil. This can be done by done up to a depth of 1 to 1.5 meters. Hydrated high calcium lime and dolomite lime are generally used for lime stabilization. So we have to understand about some of the processes which can be done. That is, one is pressure injection of lime slurry or lime fly ash slurry. So fly ash is a product which is generated in thermal power plant. So these things have to be, this can be induced into the lime fly ash slurry, as it helps in creating more strength. Then stabilizing by adding lime slurry usually to a depth of 4 to 5 meters, as we know that the active zone is 3 meters, and occasionally deeper to cover the active zone. If the structure is extremely vulnerable, then you can go to an extent deeper than 4 to 5 meters if required. But this process is actually costlier and becomes expensive for the construction. So there is another way where we can do this by under reamed piles. So this is a piling technique where the foundation is supported on piles, which does not affect by the swelling and the shrinking of the soil, because the foundation directly rests on a solid floor which is free from expansion and does not have any expansive or shrinking properties, or it may be directly resting on rock strata. So to conclude, this is possible to build successfully, but the safety of expansive soil, that is stable moisture content if maintained, or if the structure can be insulated from the soil volume change that might occur, is the procedure for success is as follows. Testing to understand and identify any problems. The designs to minimize moisture content changes and insulate their soil volume changes. So, uh, designing is a crucial part where you have to understand about the moisture content, minimum moisture content which needs to be maintained in the soil. Build in a way that will not change the moisture condition of the soil. Yeah, that is like while constructing itself, when you're providing a moisture body, barrier. So what happens? The moisture which is below the surface of the foundation remains constant, and there is no uneven changes of volume under the foundation of the soil, which prevents the chances of uneven settling. Maintain a constant moisture environment after construction. So it can be done by frequent watering and maintaining the optimum water level. So let us go into multiple choice questions. This is the first question. Volume changes in soil due to which of the following factors? First is water content is changed, increase in the soil density, change in pressure, and change in particle size. So the answer is A, and decrease in the water content of the soil causes shrinkage, while increase in the water content causes swelling. So if the water content is the major factor which determines the swelling and shrinking property of the soil. So second question, large volume changes in clay soil results in first option is increase in capillary pressure, structural damage, decrease in surface area, breaking of bonds. So explanation is answer is B, that is structural damage, because clay soil has very little shrinking and swelling capacity. Therefore, a large change in the volume results in excessive structural damage. Third question, free swell of soil can be defined as first, swelling of soil without shrinkage. Second, increase in volume without any constraint. Limited swelling of the on rewetting. Swelling on submergence in water. So it is calculated, and the answer is B, and it is calculated as per Indian Standard 2720 Part 40, where free swell of a soil is defined as the increase of volume of a soil without any constraints on submergence of water. Next question, what are the minerals and that are responsible for large volume changes, decreases in the soil on drying of clay soil? So we know that illite and kaolite, monom, montmorillite, and next is none of the mentioned and all of the mentioned. So illite and kaolite minerals are present in the clay soil, and these are the minerals that exhibit large initial volume decrease on drying. So these are the minerals which are responsible for volume decrease in soil. If there is volume increase in soil, montmorillite is the cause of increase in the volume of size. The formation of meniscus in saturated soil causes. First option, compression in the soil structure and reduction in the volume, decrease in the water content, none of the mentioned, all of the mentioned. The answer is compression in the soil structure and reduction in the volume. Explanation is the formation of meniscus and dry saturated soil causes tension in the soil water, leading to a compression in the soil structure and consequent reduction in its volume. Next question, when does surface tension in the water become zero? First option is when soil is completely dried, when the soil is completely saturated, when water evaporates, none of the mentioned. The answer is B, that is the soil is fully saturated. Initially, when the soil is fully saturated, the capillary space between the particles are completely filled with water. Therefore, the tension in the water becomes zero at this stage. This shrinkage is permanent in dash soil, clay, coarse grain, fine grain, and silt. As the degree of shrinkage increases with the increase in clay content, so shrinkage is more in clay soil. So shrinkage happens in soil with uh, most like if the soil is has lots of content of clay materials. When will the meniscus in saturated soil attain a minimum value? So to understand this, the compressive force is maximum and the shrinkage is maximum. Soil is fully saturated, none of the mentioned and all of the mentioned. The answer is A, because the compressive and the shrinkage forces are maximum when meniscus has its minimum value. The presence of sand and silt size particle in the clay deposit reduces due to swelling of soil, volume, water content, total shrinkage. The answer is total shrinkage, as since the degree of shrinkage depends on the geological deposition, the presence of sand and silt reduces the total shrinkage. Last question. Decrease in water content causes shrinkage, swelling, frost hive, frost boil. So the answer is shrinkage. As the explanation is decrease in water content of the soil results in the increase in the volume of the soil, thus causing shrinkage of the soil. Okay, thank you.